with the tip because they're only after slow beats. But you have to be quick if you want some monkey business at your restaurant. Animal rights activists will be glad to know they're only allowed to work 2 hours a day, even if they do get paid peanuts.
Is this the future? More animals in restaurants as an experience, or?
Well, that's certainly one way of doing it. Why is that an experience? An experience because it is so unusual. That it's something unexpected, something that you don't get to do every day, and that makes an experience because it creates that memory, right? You remember that because it is so distinctive and unusual. So you'll see that happening in many different ways. I don't know that it'll be monkeys in that, but anytime you create an experience that people aren't used to having, that is unusual, that's out of the norm, then there'll be a market for that.
Is it possible to do this kind of experience online? Are there already this kind of online experiences?
Yeah, there are many online experiences. I mean, the main reason that people go online is for the experience. Whether it's as simple as surfing the web and seeing what engages them in the moment, or to play a game. I mean, games are a big class of experiences that engage people. And you've heard the concept of getting into flow. And online we can get into flow where it seems like all sense of time washes away because we're so engaged in what we're doing. And that's what an experience is really about. It's about engagement. And that can happen whether in the online world or in the physical world.
We have some example here that one of the animation regarding how to bring you in instead of, when you go to Rome, you just break some montages so that the bones just drop it. But this one will give you some idea that you can walk into.
Is this a way to make old environments? Because if you really go to Rome and to the market, it's ruins. So you don't see this, you see half pillars and some stones there. So you have to imagine how it was 2,000 years ago. And now these kind of online and animations and even 3D things like impossible, you can really walk in Rome 2,000 years ago. Is that a way to look at your, let's say, heritage?
Yep, and it's a great way to use, or a great way that online technology is being used to let us experience things that are not possible in reality. Right? So we cannot experience those Roman buildings anymore because they're in ruins. So in order to be able to experience them, we can be transported into the past and be able to see things and eventually feel things that we could not otherwise do.
Yeah, and it seems to me a little bit surprised. Could it help, like putting on spice, or like we surprise you? Would it be also one of the ingredients to the experience economy?
It certainly is an ingredient. It's not the only way of doing it, but surprise is a great thing because it engages, because it's out of the norm. If you think about what a surprise really is that you have expectations that are going in a certain direction, and all of a sudden, like when I'm going to tell a story, my expectations are I'm going to tell a story, and all of a sudden we go off in a different direction, right? That's what surprises. It's not about being greater or better than something that's going outside of expectations. And that's always going to be engaging, whether it's a bad surprise or whether it's a good surprise. And you can think about bad surprises in service as well. The easiest way to create a experience is to actually provide poor service, because then your customers remember, right? Because it's lower, it's outside of their expectations.
And do we need to, go for this kind of surprise or create experience? Then we forget about the ground rule of the standards we need to provide for the service. Should we just go directly think about experience?
No, because remember that experiences are built on top of services, and services are built on top of goods, and goods on top of commodities. And so you want to avoid what I call theme restaurant disease. Theme restaurant disease, like a Planet Hollywood now, is that you think because we create this great environment that we can have lousy food and poor service, right? It doesn't work. You have to bring all of it together. That you want to build it on top of great goods, build it on top of excellent service, and then you can be able to create.
So it's just like augmented.
Yes,
so
you
not
are.
only
Yes.
just value added, and augmented value.
Right. Now this is in general.
Okay.
Because again, there are actually some experiences that people enjoy and are engaging because they have lousy service, right? And I'll think about like something, one theme restaurant is medieval times. Medieval times, like the Roman thing, here you're going back into medieval times, 1,000, 1,500 years ago, and you're eating chicken without silverware, right? And they just sort of slop it on your table, and they spill the beer on purpose when they do it, and it's part of the experience. That's because that's the way it was. And so the poor service in that case can yield a better experience. But in general, you want great service, great products, great commodities, and then that will help you create a great experience.
Chris?
But if you do this, do people think that is real, or is it just a play? They know employees are doing this kind of purpose, on purpose, of course. They have to use it. Don't people think this is a kind of fake?
Well, there's a whole big discussion of this, because I wrote a whole other book on this topic, but to address one thing in that is that yes, it is staged, and that's the word we use. Experiences are staged, and what staged means is that you are orchestrating all of the elements. You're designing all of the elements to come together to create what your intention is for that experience. And so when you're on stage, when you're acting in that, that's an inherent part of it, right? Whenever workers are in front of customers, those workers are on stage. And they're acting and need to act in a way that engages the audience and creates that experience within them. But acting isn't necessarily fake or phony. It can be, right? When we all know people who, when we see them act, you can tell that they're acting and you can tell that it's fake. But acting is fundamentally about making choices, just like staging is fundamentally about making choices. It's deciding what parts of yourselves that you want to reveal in front of yourself. And therefore it can be a very real thing. It can be fake or phony, but it can be a very real thing to be able to act on stage.
Like you said, I remember render experience, I like that one, to make the consumer feel like this is natural, but actually they already prepared and create a man-made experience for the consumers. So in terms of hospitality and so hotel management, how could it be the example of the render experience?
Yeah, render is sort of a strange word even in English. I know if English is not your first language, that it can be a strange word to think about. It's got many meanings. But what we mean by it is that render means to make out of whole cloth. In other words, something that's not, you make it real. And that's the way business is. All business is inherently fake and phony. But we can render it by getting people to perceive it as authentic. And so that's what you want to do as a business, is you're managing the perceptions of authenticity so that people come to view you and your offering and your places as authentic.
Chris, do you have any idea?
Well, let's say if you look at the tourism business and you look at, let's say, tourism promotion plans for countries or even cities, you see that they really use a lot of all kinds of old images. You still see pictures from my home country, the Netherlands. You still see wooden shoes and tulips and windmills, and the tulips are still there and the windmills. And yesterday I told the students, windmills are not working anymore. You see them working just for the tourists. Yeah, and nobody in the Netherlands is walking on wooden shoes anymore. Is that positive or negative for such to make the Netherlands an experience?
Yes. Yes, it is. Well, because of authenticity, it's very important to understand your heritage. But you also need to take that heritage and bring it forward. So when I flew into the Netherlands earlier this week, before I came here to Bangkok, you could see actual working windmills, but they were the sleek, modern kind of windmills, and to actually generate electricity. And of course, immediately you feel, well, that's a Dutch thing, because windmills are Dutch. But wooden shoes are like horrible. I mean, you can't walk on wooden shoes, they're just terrible. They're only there for as a souvenir, right? And so there's a little bit of a sort of a kitsch sort of thing, but there's a little bit of a desire for that. But I would think that to bring that heritage forward to today would be to think about not wooden shoes, but but still handcrafted. I mean, think about wood if they were handcrafted. There could be a heritage of handcrafting shoes and even 3D printing shoes that would make sense for the Netherlands. But the wooden shoes are sort of not really. Only as a cheap souvenir.
Yeah.
But there are many other places where you want that. You want that authentic experience.
What you said about the natural and being authentic, should it be like back to basics? Everybody want to get close to the nature and close to what we have been before? Is it something like that?
Well, that's one way. Again, almost all these questions, there's many ways, and because there's so much innovation going on. There's so many different companies that are trying things. But going back to nature is one way that companies render authenticity. And in fact, we first saw the rise of authenticity with organic produce. Right? So that we take produce, we don't want pesticides, we don't want all this unnatural stuff on it. And why? Well, I think the answer is because we actually ingest it. We eat produce, it becomes part of us. And because it becomes part of us, we want that authentic, we want that natural. You next saw it with personal body care, shampoos and soaps and that. Why? Well, because they touch our skin and our hair and that, they become part of us from the outside, whereas food becomes part of us from the inside, and therefore we want those to be authentic as well. So natural authenticity, as I call it, is one of the ways that you can do that, and people wanting to visit the beach, for example, in Thailand, or go into a rainforest in South America. Those are also the type of natural environment experiences that people want to have, but again, they're not the only way. But there's going to be an increasing desire for that.
Is that a way to also to make distinctions within a sector? Because you see, you also mentioned it in some books and articles, if you look at the hospitality industry, a lot of hotels are everywhere the same. Same price, same luxury, same spa, or when they do start a little bit and then go down to their host stays in Bangkok, but they all look also quite the same. Where is the way to differentiate?
Yeah, well, as we saw the rise of the experience economy, one of the things we saw, of course, was the rise of theme restaurants, we saw the rise of experiential retail, and we also saw the rise of boutique hotels. And that's where most of the experimentation and innovation around experiences is in boutique hotels. Where they're distinct, they're unique, they're quirky, they're unusual, they are not a chain. So they're very opposite of what a chain is. My personal favorite boutique hotel company is Waterdeep Hospitality, that you know, Chris, founded by Chip Conley, who's now the Chief Hospitality Officer of Airbnb. Right, so originally he started this boutique hotel chain, and what he did is he themed them after magazines. And it's a very unique way of doing it, because if he takes a magazine and he makes a physical representation of it in the hotel, then what does he know is that everybody who likes that magazine is going to love this hotel. And so he has 10, 20, 30 different hotels, all themed after different magazines, knowing that for any customer in almost any segment, there's going to be a hotel that he has for that particular customer. I think it's a brilliant way of doing it. They're all small hotels, and they're all unusual. They're not like any chain.
In Thailand, there is a trend that so many old house or old building that was built after Second World War, they try to rebuild and renovate and try to say like a boutique hotel. So the maximum room like maybe 50 or 30 rooms. So those kind of things could, I feel like they make a nostalgic feeling to say, okay, all of this contemporarily from the past to the present, we can live together. Do you think this kind of trend still go far?
Yeah. I mean, again, that's one way to do it, is to create that sense of nostalgia within people, to get them to